pharmacist. He will, at this time, introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Susan. How is everyone? I am very, very honored to welcome our very, very special guest to Anderson, South Carolina, Mrs. Carly Fiorina. Mrs. Carly Fiorina.
Thank you very much for that very gracious introduction. And I must say, when I hear an introduction like that backstage, I always feel that I need to come out and correct the record, because it sounds sort of smooth, doesn't it? You know, well, she started as a secretary and then she became a CEO, and nobody's life is smooth. Mine hasn't been either. So allow me to correct the record just a little bit. I graduated with a degree from college in medieval history and philosophy. See, we have a few philosophy majors out there. There is hope. But the point is, because I graduated with a degree in medieval history and philosophy, I was, shall we say, all dressed up with nowhere to go. I was unemployable. I went off to law school. I went to law school because my dad was a law professor. And he thought maybe that'd be a good idea for me, but I hated law school. I quit after a single semester. And now my resume reads medieval history and philosophy major, law school dropout. I'm really unemployable. And so I go back to work doing full-time what I had done part-time to put myself through school. I was a Kelly girl in school. We don't use that term anymore, but Kelly girls when I was in college were mostly women who typed and filed and answered the phones for local businesses. That's what I did. I was pretty good at it. So I went into the... You know what zero-based budgeting is? Examine every dollar. Move any dollar. Cut any dollar. How is it possible that the government spends more money each and every year and has been doing so for 40 years? Under Republicans and Democrats alike, ladies and gentlemen, we talk a good game. Limit the size of government, we haven't done it. How is it possible that the government spends more money every year for 40 years and yet we never have enough money to do the important things? Have you ever noticed that? We had $18 trillion in debt. We spend more money every year and have been for 40 years, and yet every time something becomes important, well, we need more money. Secure the border, we need more money. Answer taxpayer questions on tax day, we need more money. You know why that's true? Because the money's all spoken for. The money can't be spoken for. Zero-based budgeting, examine every dollar, cut any dollar, move any dollar. It's the only way we spend less overall and invest what's necessary in our priorities, like rebuilding our military, like defending our nation. It might surprise you to know that there's a bill for zero-based budgeting sitting on the floor of the U.S. House. Aren't you surprised? It hasn't been voted on. Think how many oxes will get gored if that bill gets voted on. Third, we need to repeal Obamacare. We need to repeal Obamacare. We need to try the one thing we never tried in healthcare, which is the free market. The free market. And wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice as consumers and patients of healthcare if you had some power? And how do you have power in a marketplace? Information. Thank you so much. I see there are microphones here in the two aisles, so if you have a question, please come on down, as they say. Yes, sir, and then ma'am, you can make your way to the microphone as well.
Is this working? It is working. First off, I got to tell you this. You are the first candidate that I contributed to since Ronald Reagan.
Well, thank you, sir.
My question is, I'd like your thoughts on the Supreme Court, because I think that's one of the most important issues that will be coming out after the next election.
Well, thank you for that question, because indeed the next president may have as many as 4 Supreme Court nominees. And it's an incredibly important set of responsibilities. You know, I mentioned to you my dad. My dad, I said, was a law professor, and he was. My dad is also where I learned conservatism. You know, I adored my dad, and he would come home from work, and I would sit at his knees while he watched the news. And I would watch him yell at Walter Cronkite. And I would ask him why, and he would explain. And the next morning, I would get up and watch him yell at the New York Times. And I would say, Daddy, why do you read this? It would upset you. He would explain. Why do I bring up my father in connection with Supreme Court justices? Because ultimately, he went on to become a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judge. If you know anything about the Ninth Circuit, you know they are the most liberal court in the land. And my dad was really conservative. And I watched him for 20 years stick to his principles. And so he was dissenting most of the time. And virtually every time the Supreme Court reversed the Ninth Circuit, they reversed them a lot, they would point to my father's dissenting opinions. Why do I bring that up? Because what I will look for in a nominee is someone who understands how to withstand pressure. The truth is, there are a lot of people who get put on the Supreme Court and we all think they're conservative. And maybe they are, and then the pressure starts. The pressure starts from their fellow judges. The pressure starts from the punditry. The pressure starts from the city of Washington, D.C. And suddenly, they're not so conservative anymore. So in addition to selecting nominees who have a track record of real conservative principles and conservative activism when necessary, I will pick people who have a track record of sticking to their principles. Something to do with the quality of education in this country. You know the answer to this, we all do. A good teacher and an involved parent or a community. And unfortunately, spending in the Department of Education, I don't care whether you call it Common Core, Race to the Top, No Child Left Behind, has nothing to do with a quality teacher in the front of the classroom and an involved parent. So we need to push as much money and responsibility as close to communities as possible. We need to make sure that excellent teachers are rewarded, and we need to give parents real choices. Because when parents have choices, their kids have chances. And that means parents need every choice available to them. I don't care if it's parochial school, homeschooling, vouchers, charters, parents need choices. You know, it's interesting. One of the things that I think we must do to win this election in 2016 is we need a nominee who will be fearless in exposing progressivism for what it is. And education is the most potent issue on which to do that. We believe as conservatives that every child is gifted by God, that every life is full of potential. But who is it the Democrats continue to protect? The teachers' unions. And what do the teachers' unions stand for? The protection of the status quo of their power base. And if you doubt that, let me back up for a moment and say, you know, I've been on The View twice. Sometimes we actually have to talk to people who don't yet know they agree with us. But why do I think about The View in the context of education? Because the first time I was on The View, I was talking to one of their hosts, Rosie Perez, and she was sort of fascinated by the fact that I have met Vladimir Putin and had quite a conversation with him. And she said to me, you know, Carly, I really like you. She sounded surprised, I must say. I'm not a Republican. I said, wow, Rosie, I'm shocked I wouldn't have guessed that. But then she asked the key question. She said, why are you? And I said, because I know no one of us is any better than any other one of us. Each of us are gifted by God. All of us can live lives of dignity and purpose and meaning. And our values and our principles and our policies work better to lift everyone up regardless of their circumstances. But then I went on, I said, progressives don't believe that. They believe some are smarter than others. Some are better than others. Some are going to take care of others. And it doesn't matter if you tangle someone's life up in a web of dependence that lasts for generations. And I said, if you don't believe that, think about what the head of the Chicago Public Teachers Union said when they went on strike. She said this: we cannot be held accountable for the performance of students in our classroom because too many of them are poor and come from broken families. That is not what we believe, ladies and gentlemen. That is not what this country is about. Every child is gifted by God. And while we are spending more and more money on the Department of Education and the teachers' unions are standing up and protecting their status quo, the opportunity gap between those who are less fortunate and those who are wealthy has grown greater and greater and greater. Parents need to have a choice so their kids have a real chance, and we need to get the federal government out of the education business. I ask you to reflect on two of the most powerful symbols of this nation's democracy: Lady Liberty and Lady Justice. Picture Lady Liberty in your minds. She stands tall and strong, which is the way America must always be. She is clear-eyed and resolute. She doesn't shield her eyes from the realities or the evils of the world, but she faces out into the world, which is the way we must always face as a nation. And she holds her torch very high, because she knows she's a beacon of hope in a troubled and tragic world. And Lady Justice. Lady Justice holds a sword by her side because she's a fighter. She's a warrior for the values and the principles that have made this nation great. She holds a scale in her other hand. And with that scale, she is saying to us, all of us are equal in the eyes of God. And so all of us must be equal in the eyes of the law and government, powerful and powerless alike. And she wears a blindfold. And with that blindfold, I think she is reminding us, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how you start. It doesn't matter your circumstances. In this nation, we believe every American's life must be filled with the possibilities that come from their God-given gifts. And we can be that nation.
Again, we want to thank you for being here. We have a little gift for our special guest, a little something from South Carolina for her to remember us by, and you can use it when you cook Christmas dinner. Okay.